The St. Kitts and Nevis Independence 42 Committee presents Conversations, Reflections, and a Way Forward. This interactive discussion series provides an in-depth view of the trials and achievements of the past, as well as the accomplishments, threats, and tremendous opportunities of today and in the coming years that will transform the Twin Island Federation into a model sustainable island state, serving as a beacon for all. On this edition, we discuss what role should our global family play in building St. Kitts and Nevis.
And good day to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Toni Frederick-Armstrong, and we are continuing today our conversations, reflection, and the way forward as part of our Independence 42 activities. And we're going to be, and we started last week, and we're going to be right up until independence, having conversations around our independence theme. Today, we're going to be talking about what role should our global family play in building St. Kitts and Nevis. And we have assembled a very interesting panel for you today. And we're going to delve into some of these issues, including whether or not the diaspora would include citizens by investment, okay? And they are citizens. So these are the sorts of things we'll talk about. We'll be talking again about how those contributions can be made and what their involvement should be and so on. So we have some very interesting panelists with us today. And I'm going to introduce from my immediate right, and we'll go down to Ms. Huggins at the end. So sitting next to me is Ms. Davinia Tomlinson, who is the Chief Marketing Officer with our Citizenship by Investment unit. Next to Ms. Tomlinson, we have Ms. Desiree Huggins, who is the Assistant Secretary, Regional Integration and Diaspora Unit in the Prime Minister's Office. Now, both Ms. Tomlinson is a citizen by descent, as is Ms. Williams, right? And then we have Ms. Sorry, I introduced you as Ms. Huggins. So there we go. But Ms. Huggins is actually at the very end in the blue, and she is with the Regional Integration and Diaspora Unit in the Prime Minister's Office. My apologies. And then in the middle, we have our returning Nationals and Descendants Association president, who is a citizen by descent and currently lives here. And that is Ms. Beverly Williams. So let's just go over this again. We have Ms. Tomlinson next to me. We have Ms. Williams next to her and Ms. Huggins at the end. So now all of these women fit into this conversation in various capacities. And so I'm going to throw out our first question, because I know that you have a lot to say, and I want to make sure everybody has lots of time to do that. So let's start. Actually, you know what? Let's start with you, Ms. Tomlinson. Beyond just the financial contributions that citizens can make, and again, we are including at this point citizens by investment and, of course, citizens in the diaspora. So that includes Kittitians and Nevisians who live abroad and their children and grandchildren, so citizens by descent. So beyond just the financial, and you know, we have our remittances, we have investments, the CBI investment, but also people build homes here, and some of them have businesses and so on. What specific tangible roles can the diaspora play in directly contributing to nation building beyond the money part? Is there a role?
I think there is a role, and I think there's quite a significant role. And obviously I speak as someone that straddles different categories. As a citizen by descent myself, my mother is Kittitian, my grandparents are Kittitian, but also now in my capacity as Chief Marketing Officer at the Citizenship by Investment unit, in which we are looking to harness not just the financial contributions of our economic citizens, but also other ways that they can make a demonstrable impact on Kittitians and Nevisians. And I think from my perspective, historically the conversation, specifically around citizenship by investment, has centred primarily on that economic contribution, which of course has made, you know, a number of contributions to our everyday life, which I'm sure we can get into later in the conversation. But I think it's quite difficult for, if you are somebody that is far removed from the citizenship by investment industry, it can appear to be one that is hugely extractive and one that doesn't necessarily benefit you in the way that you would expect to see. One of the things that I've experienced in my time, in my capacity in this role, is that there are economic citizens that might come from as far afield as Bangladesh, Pakistan, Iran, other places that you might think, you know, how can they understand our culture? You know, how can they really feel a part of what we're building here in St. Kitts and Nevis? And we hosted an Investment Gateway Summit this summer in May. And there was one individual, an economic citizen, who couldn't be any prouder to be part of St. Kitts and Nevis. He came fully adorned in St. Kitts and Nevis regalia. From his hat, he had a tie, he had a pin, he had a T-shirt that was emblazoned with our flag. He was so proud, and he took every opportunity that he could to come and speak to myself and other members of the team about how proud he felt to be part of this. So I think there is something about the power of St. Kitts, the brand of St. Kitts, you know, of course I'm speaking from a marketing perspective, where we are punching well above our weight as a population. You know, we're relatively small in stature, but the impact that we are making out there is significant. And so I think we need to, instead of thinking of citizenship by investment in particular as purely extractive, instead identify ways that we can benefit from those economic citizens, whether it be through startup capital for businesses that we can explore as an opportunity. It might be them lending their expertise. We had a guest speaker at that same conference who was a rocket scientist. He's from Switzerland. He came and did an exceptional keynote speech. And again, we wouldn't necessarily expect to have an individual like that in our midst, because you would think, how could somebody from Switzerland have that connection to St. Kitts and Nevis? And again, another individual that is incredibly proud to be part of what we are building in St. Kitts and Nevis. So I think really the opportunity is a mindset one to begin with, flipping it on its head and thinking about how we can work in collaboration and identify ways for mutual value rather than feeling that we are being exploited in some way. I think in the other category, as I say, as somebody that is from the diaspora, you know, I've lived here for 5 years with my 2 young daughters. And there was a really important reason why we wanted to move to St. Kitts. You know, I've grown up in the UK, I was born in the UK, but it was important for me to raise my children steeped in their heritage so that they could tap into the legacy that was left for them by their grandmother, by their great-grandparents. That is really important. I think there are other members of the diaspora that could relate to that conversation. How can they make sure that their children and their grandchildren feel a sense of connection to the culture of St. Kitts and Nevis? So I think the more that we can do to reach out to them, involve them in the conversation beyond just voting, I think would be quite a powerful thing to do.
And that presents a whole set of questions. But I do want to give everyone a chance to tackle that first one. Ms. Williams, your thoughts?
I agree with everything that the lady has said. I think from my perspective as the returning national president for St. Kitts and Nevis, to which I'm very proud of, and I'm also proud to be a citizen of St. Kitts. As you said, I'm also a descendant. But what we have done as from the returning national perspective, we've actually added on Descendants, because when it was first established in 1978 by the former President George Richards, who sadly passed away, it was just returning nationals. So when we took the mantle up last year, we added on Descendants, because we've got to bear in mind that a lot of our parents who's either passed away or too old now to come back, like myself, the descendants want to come back to St. Kitts. And there is something about St. Kitts that draws people here, and there's something very significant why people want to be here. And I meet a lot of people. I feel like an ambassador for St. Kitts because I'm forever encouraging our people in the diaspora to come home. And there's a lot of skills and wealth of knowledge that we have that we can bring to help build St. Kitts and Nevis as well. And, you know, sometimes people may see us as like come to try and take over, but they've got to see the positive things that we can bring into St. Kitts to help it be better, than, you know, to build it, to take it forward and build the better St. Kitts and Nevis for our people. So I'm forever encouraging our people to come back home to St. Kitts because it's in our DNA. And like you said, you know, it's there for our children to set the legacy for our children, because my parents, my grandparents and those foregone were all Kittitian born. And so I said, I'm a proud Kittitian to be here. And I'm glad for the honor of being here to represent the Returning Nationals and Descendants Association for St. Kitts.
Wonderful. Now, Ms. Huggins, your thoughts. I mean, you are a national living
as a national living in St. Kitts and also a representative from the Regional Integration and Diaspora Unit, the Diaspora is not separate and apart from St. Kitts and Nevis. They're an extension of the nation. They're cultural ambassadors, you know, they contribute in they have a sense of pride, as Beverly would have said. You know, when I was younger, we would look at persons in the diaspora, they send home the barrels, they send home the money and stuff. But I think it's the Nevis is progressing and moving in a different direction, you know. We want to move away from the transactional kind of contribution to a more transformative partnership with persons in the diaspora. You know, that way we can tap into the knowledge that they have out there. The culture, they push our culture forward, our heritage, you know. So they're not just there. We're here it's a partnership. We should never look at our diaspora as being separate. We are one. And I don't think I could add much more to what was said by the other ladies, but.
No, so my next question would be, how do we do this? Now, Ms. Williams is front and center. She says, you know, she encourages it, and is there something beyond just the casual conversation, you know, or talking to your gran, or, you know, talking to your friend back home, or having a conversation with somebody when they're applying for citizenship? Is there a way that we can tangibly reach out, or advertise is a strong word, but promote or call for? I like the idea of the skills. Recently, we had someone, I didn't attend, unfortunately, but I know there was someone a national who lives abroad, who is a financial expert, and came and did a series on investing in the stock market, because we thought, living here in St. Kitts and Nevis, you can't invest in stock markets outside of the region. And he actually came and did and you know, it was booked out. So that's something.
Right.
You know, so let's talk about that. Is there a way to reach out, and I mean in a strategic campaign-like way, if you will, rather than just the informal? For him, it was conversations on Facebook, not conversations with capital C, but having conversations on Facebook about money. That made him think, why don't I do this? And people were like, do it, I'd be interested, and it happened. So, is there a way?
I think from my perspective, it's not just about a financial offering, you know, it's not just about offering finances, it's not just about giving money, but it's also other ways we can contribute from the diaspora by sending items down to maybe help the community.
Isn't that financial, though, in a way?
It's gifting. It's a financial in a way. But I mean, for example, recently I was in England visiting my family, and I brought back a case full of stationery equipment for the children in the community going back to school. Okay, so you've got your pens, your crayons, your felt tips, things that they would, you know, notebooks, things that would help them to, So. As I said, it's not, and then the other things we can do is bring our skills and our knowledge and experience. I mean, I was a social worker when I grew up in England, and I'd love to be able to offer some of my expertise of what I did if it was so needed. So there's lots of things that people are coming into the island that can bring with them, whether it be just, you know, building, working mechanics, doing cars. There's quite a lot of things that we can bring that we've taken back from what we've learnt in England, and we can bring forward and use here. I mean, this is my home now, this is where I live, and this is why I've always seen St. Kitts as my home. There's no other place like St. Kitts, and I'm not here just to promote St. Kitts, but it is my home. And as I said before, I feel like I just want to keep encouraging, especially the younger ones, young people, when I meet them on the beach on holiday, and you'd be surprised how many younger ones are now thinking out of the box, that they want to get out of where they're living now and coming to islands like St. Kitts to bring what they learnt back home.
Ms. Tomlinson, Ms. Huggins, any thoughts on how we can do it, how we can get that regular, sustained investment? And I don't mean it in terms of finance, but time and skill and so on.
At Ridgew, we house the Diaspora Ambassador in Dr. Christine Walwyn. She makes frequent visits to the different associations in the various, in USA, Canada, the UK, And during those visits, what she does, she tries to reach out to the various associations, St. Kitts and Nevis associations, and she holds meetings with them. And that way people try to identify ways in which they can contribute to things in St. Kitts and Nevis. Like we had at one point in sports, we had some netballs that were sent by one of the associations for the schools. So we do that in various aspects of that. And additionally, I would like to talk about the Prime Minister's lecture series that we normally have here. That is a wonderful, wonderful aspect of it. I would highlight Ambassador Tadia Claxton. She came, she did her thing, she made her speech, and she was able to have the MOU, I think it's with Southern University. She's integral in developing that relationship that we have with Southern University. So it's contribution towards the educational aspect of our people in St. Kitts. So if we would have more persons like that in the diaspora who come in, they have the conversations with us, they make their presentation, but they still remain and seek how they can do things on the ground for persons, not just come, you speak, and you leave. So we should try to see if we could network with them, and they have their network, so we can network with their network and constantly build on that. Because we're moving towards our sustainable island state. So we want to have various projects that are one of those pillars that we can have investments in there. Not, as you said, just financial, but there are other aspects of it.
Anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I actually think that there is a real missed opportunity with regard to how we access and reach the diaspora. So, as Ms. Williams and Ms. Huggins said, there are so many almost benevolent members of the diaspora who are happy to contribute. They contribute to the children's home at Christmas, or they contribute to back to school campaigns. They contribute in a variety of different ways. The Independence Lecture Series, we know that often it's diasporans who come back and share their expertise and what they've been doing and how they are cultural ambassadors for St. Kitts and Nevis out there, which is a brilliant contribution. The missed opportunity, I think, is in how we can digitize some of this, because actually, if you consider, and we talked about this prior to the conversation starting, there are many more Kittitians and Nevisians living outside the Federation than there are inside the Federation currently. The data suggests that, and it has been the same for a number of years. How do we make sure that we can tap into those individuals? And to your point, Ms. Williams, reaching younger members of the diaspora.
Definitely.
Because my grandparents and my mother's generation, my aunties and uncles, they're probably listening, they're bought into St. Kitts and Nevis. They're from here. They feel a sense of nostalgia. They'll come back here. They'll go to town at Christmas. They'll go to Queen's Show. They'll go to Calypso Show. If I hadn't moved back here with my daughters, they would have no idea about any of that. So how would you reach those young people who become second-generation descendants and foster that sense of connection? And one of the best ways to do that, from my perspective, is to create some kind of database where we are tracking all of those people, we are connecting with them. It's not smoke signal or pigeon carrier, but instead we're emailing them. We have, social media communities, we have WhatsApp communities, and I know a number of the WhatsApp communities exist already for the various associations. But how can we formalize this at a high level and scale it across the board so that we're reaching people and connecting diasporans from the UK, the US, Canada, wherever they may be, the ones in Taiwan that are out there studying. We have a database. We are clear on what each of these individuals are doing. We can segment them by, not specifically by age, but we can segment them by age group so they can find peers that are similar, they might be like-minded. We can foster some of those conversations. Young people are online all the time. In fact, older people are online all the time, to be frank. So we just want to make sure that we can reach those individuals, track them wherever they are, and they can tap into a community and see what's happening in real time. It could be in the form of an app, a database, a website. But I think that's one of the best ways for us to make sure that we can start that thread and follow that thread of continuity as people move around the world.
I think that's a fantastic idea, I really do. Now, is there a role for the citizen? And you did mention that there are some citizens, by investment, who are eager and excited about being Kittitian and Nevisian. But there's some, and we have to be honest too, that's not really what it's about. Now, how do we harness, how do we foster a deeper connection between new citizens? If that's what they want, if that's what we want. But is there a way to encourage their active participation beyond the investment? And would we include them in that database in some way? Many people are, maybe they may be very wealthy people who privacy is an issue for them and so on. So is there a way to open the door then? You know, not say, oh, with investment you're going to be put in this chat room, but how do we leverage, if you will, or adapt the program to foster a connection? Because right now they don't have a residency requirement. Is that correct?
That's correct.
To become citizens.
That's correct.
Okay, so. And you know what, that's a selling point. It is, so I'm not suggesting we change that. So I'm going to put that question to you.
Yeah.
If there's a way.
I think almost in a similar way to the realism that you identified, in that not every economic citizen will invest in St. Kitts and Nevis and want to feel part of the fabric of society and our culture and what we're doing, and we do have to be honest about that. But that said, there are huge swathes of economic citizens that are clamoring for ways to feel this deeper sense of connection. In fact, you know, and again, I come back to this event because we uncovered this incredible young man that actually lives between St. Kitts and Nevis. And he's such an unlikely character that you would expect to be applying for citizenship by investment. You know, if we imagine, you know, the average profile of somebody that would be applying through CBI, you would expect them perhaps to come from the Middle East, as I say, you know, certain nations in which nations in which they don't have the same sense of mobility. They might have the wealth, but their passport does not afford them the same privileges as you might have if you're from the US or Canada or the UK. We identified a young man that lives here, that is from the UK, British born, and we talk, you know, we speak quite candidly now, particularly in today's discourse about white privilege, about male privilege. He's a young white male who of his own volition decided to apply to become an economic citizen. He has acquired a St. Kitts passport. He lives here. He runs his business here. And it really unlocked something in my imagination because, again, despite, and you know, I'm relatively new to the industry, having worked for CIU for 1 year, but it unlocked something in my imagination because it made me realize that actually it really isn't just about global mobility, and we have to open the conversation around CBI beyond that. So again, how do we make sure that it is a mutually beneficial exchange of value so that when they come here and set up businesses, there are opportunities for us to learn from them about how they set up businesses in their country, and not just how we can be employed by their businesses, but how we can learn how to set up our businesses as well and scale our businesses, train our staff, and ultimately start to build this legacy and intergenerational wealth that all Kittitians and Nevisians deserve. So that really is what, you know, with my team, from a marketing perspective, when we talk about CBI to the external market, that's how we're positioning it. This is your opportunity to contribute. And of course, you are contributing financially, but there is intellectual capital that you can also contribute. So yes, there might have to be some kind of quasi database for economic citizens that's distinct from Descendants, because of course, the messaging and the objective for those different communities will differ. But I still think it's an important way for us to foster that sense of relationship, which will include them coming, staying here, bringing their families, and having their families feel that they have a connection to this beautiful federation that we call home as well.
And of course, we don't need all of our economic citizens involved.
Just a few.
You know, 5 or 6 really
good ones.
Absolutely. Can make it. And same with the diaspora as well. You know, we do have to take a quick pause for a cause. We're going to take a quick break. And we're coming back with conversations. Today we're talking about the role of the diaspora in nation building.
The St. Kitts and Nevis Independence 42 Committee presents Conversations, Reflections and a Way Forward. This interactive discussion series provides an in-depth view of the trials and achievements of the past, as well as the accomplishments, threats, and tremendous opportunities of today and in the coming years that will transform the Twin Island Federation into a model sustainable island state, serving as a beacon for all. On this edition, we discuss what role should our global family play in building St. Kitts and Nevis.
Your children's future dwindling.
The St. Kitts and Nevis Independence 42 Committee presents Conversations, Reflections and a Way Forward. This interactive discussion series provides an in-depth view of the trials and achievements of the past, as well as the accomplishments, threats, and tremendous opportunities of today and in the coming years that will transform the Twin Island Federation into a model sustainable island state, serving as a beacon for all. On this edition, we discuss what role should our global family play in building St. Kitts and Nevis.
Would you see your children's future dwindling?
And welcome back. Today on Conversations, we are talking about what role our global family play in building St. Kitts and Nevis. And we have guests with us today. We've got Ms. Davinia Tomlinson, who is the Chief Marketing Officer at our Citizenship by Investment Unit. We have Ms. Beverly Williams, who is a returning MBE. She's a returning National and Descendants Association President, the returning Nationals and Descendants Association President. And Ms. Desiree Huggins, who is the Assistant Secretary, Regional Integration and Diaspora Unit in the Prime Minister's Office, and we'd also like to wish her a happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, Toni.
No, we're going to sing. Not today.
I don't know what the other's voices sound like, but I've got to tell you, you don't want me singing.
Thank you, Toni.
On live television. I'm going to throw out a question to all of you, and I'd love it if you engaged on this. So, does the citizen, whether a diaspora citizen or CBI citizen, is there, or does citizenship entail some sort of obligation? So beyond the rights that you have as a citizen, are you in some way obligated to contribute in some way?
I would say it's not an obligation as such. I think it's more like a choice. And it's you're going to want to contribute, because I'm not going to I haven't come to St. Kitts to sit down. I mean, people said, even though I'm retired, I do a lot of things. As I said, I'm the president for the Returning Nationals, and I'm very pleased to be doing that. Part of our role is to encourage and help and support people coming in to St. Kitts, because the process is not easy. It can be very stressful, and it can be very frustrating. So I see our association as the stopgap for people wanting to relocate to St. Kitts and Nevis. So what we do is things like, if somebody's having issues with their citizenship, and I'm sure it's no secret, but that can take 6 months to a year to apply for citizenship. And one of the things we do as an association is we stand in the gap and we advocate for that person. So where they're waiting like 2-3 years for their citizenship application, we make contact with the National Security Office and we can get that moving for them. So that's something we do as well. And we've done, in the last year, we've actually helped 6 applicants to get their citizenship quicker than if they were just waiting. Because if you're living abroad, you can't contact the people here. It's not that easy. So we feel we're doing a good job for them there. Also, even when it comes to the relocation, as you know, Ms. Huggins, when it comes to relocating your items and bringing your things over, that is very difficult and it is very stressful. But again, we make the connection with Miss Morris in the office who deals with the returning nationals. We advise them where to go, we signpost them where to go, and we make phone calls on their behalf. So we do a lot to help people coming in.
So they can contact you
Absolutely, absolutely.
How do they do that?
We've now set up a Facebook page, and they've got my contact number. I can give that contact number before we close. We've got a Facebook page, we've got emails, and we send out, we try to also try and find members, because again, there's a lot of people on St. Kitts and Nevis Island who we may not be able to reach out to. So this again is a good opportunity to reach out to them, to let them know we are here. And if you are having any problems or coming in or any issues at all, to contact us direct.
And perhaps we can ask the Independence 42 Anniversary Committee, and there is a Facebook page for them.
Yep.
And of course, you can also do this through the SKNIS, but perhaps they can also list in the...
Absolutely.
Where this video is posted, they can also list contact information for the
and link our Facebook page as well. That would be absolutely helpful.
And you know, as a returning national myself, and it was a few years ago, but I understand what you mean about returning and returning with the goods that you have. I was able to speak to someone, and I did understand that if you were bringing back personal effects, that were yours and
Yes.
were used,
Yes.
that you could bring them in without
That charge, yeah, you get a concessionary, yeah.
and I must tell you, ladies, a story. But I bought a television, a smaller TV to bring back with me because my TV was quite large. So it wasn't very old, and apparently the used item has to be at least a year or something. Whatever it was, I didn't know. So it was a few, and it looked quite new. And the officer said, "I'm very sorry, ma'am, but you know it's new. It's not old enough. It doesn't qualify. I do have to charge you." And I just sat there looking at the TV, and I said, I think I would just rather leave it
and purchase
and just buy one. I said, I might want to smash the screen or something first so no one has it. And he chuckled. He said, "It's okay, Miss Frederick." And he actually let me go through, which was a good thing, because a week later, mind you, I'd never lived in St. Kitts since I was a baby. At a family gathering, in he walked, and he was my cousin. He didn't know, I didn't know.
He was just
we
kind.
were second generation, but our fathers were first cousins, so we had a chuckle over that, and we were grateful that we had a chuckle at customs about it, and that it hadn't sort of turned ugly. But I say all of that to say that yes, it is quite a challenge.
It is.
And there's lots of, I did have my citizenship already. Obviously, I was born here, but I imagine for citizens of descent.
Yeah.
So.
Can I just chip into something that Ms. Williams said?
Absolutely.
Because I think, notwithstanding your point, and it is difficult, and I've had many a sleepless night and many a sad, tearful face experiencing that transition and trying to ship things in. But I did have a pleasant experience with customs in the end, but it isn't easy.
No.
But notwithstanding that, I think we need to be more radical than that even, because I actually don't think it's a choice. I think the same rights and responsibilities that are conferred upon citizens that are nationals that are born and raised in St. Kitts. For the diaspora or economic citizens, it is a civic duty. You can't show up and enjoy the benefits and not feel that you have an obligation. So from my perspective, it should feel like a privilege. Even when we talk about our national anthem.
Now you're talking about ones who return or ones who...
Whether you return, whether you are in the diaspora and choose to come back periodically, whatever the nature is, as long as you are proudly calling yourself a Kittitian or a Nevisian, living here or living in the diaspora, you should recognise that it comes with a certain basket of obligations, and you are obligated to your fellow citizen. One of the best things that I've observed since moving here is quite how civically minded we are. So, there are so many social enterprises. People want to pour into young women. They want to pour into young men. There's the Elevate programme. There are a number of initiatives that the government has established to help people feel that they are not on the fringes of society, but that they are part of the fabric of what's happening here. If you choose to return, or if you're a returning national, it shouldn't feel that you can opt in or opt out of signing up to what's happening here. No, you've chosen to come back.
What would that look like to you?
It looks like identifying ways that you can lend your expertise, whether that be through volunteering. But in addition, and I speak as somebody that comes from a finance background, so as much as I do volunteer, I'm also interested in an exchange of value for money as well. We need to be paid. Otherwise, we're not going to get young people to move back here if they don't think that they can benefit economically by exchanging their skill set and their knowledge and their education in exchange for payment. So that has to be something that is considered at a more structural level. But I do think that when we come back, we have to do something, and it's not just sitting on the fringes and criticising and saying, well, that doesn't work the way that it should. And I know that myself, I'm guilty of this. And, I saw something recently on social media that referred to those of us that have returned as neo-colonizers that really made me think, oh gosh, am I in that category? Because
we didn't get angry.
I didn't. I had to do some self-reflection. Am I somebody that is in St. Kitts criticising things and saying it works much better in the UK? Because a Kittitian or Nevisian would be well within their rights to say to me, well, go back to the UK then.
100%.
So we have to view it. It's not a choice. It is we are here and we are obligated to contribute. We lend our skills, we lend our expertise, we mentor, we work, we reside in communities, we lobby, we vote. We do all of the things that come with being a civic or fulfilling our civic duty.
Yes, and
Ms. Huggins, you got very excited.
Yes, I don't know what Beverly and Davinia would have said. From the reader perspective, I think persons in the diaspora, they see this as an obligation, because the amount of associations that we have in these various countries, there are several of them across the US, Canada, the UK, and they always seek a way to promote St. Kitts and Nevis.
But just being members in these associations.
Show that there's an obligation. Right.
And an interest.
Correct. So the fact that they are there, we can say that they can see the obligation and not just a choice. You know, they're cultural ambassadors, they share our heritage, they're always seeking some way to promote St. Kitts and Nevis. You go to the different countries, you see the carnivals, they have our flags, they promote all of that. So it is an obligation. I see they understand that it's an obligation to push St. Kitts and Nevis forward in any which way they can.
And just tapping on from that, even when you mentioned about the carnival, they've just gone through the Notting Hill Carnival on Monday. And you see our flags, they see people wearing our T-shirts. Leeds Carnival, they call Leeds Little St. Kitts because everybody up there.
But it was Leeds Carnival was started by a Kittitian.
There you go.
From France.
Yeah,
There's
a lot of Kittitians up there. Yeah. So they do promote their culture by their music. But I can guarantee say that in England they definitely promote St. Kitts and Nevis.
That is why
in every culture, everything we do.
Correct.
Everything they do.
That is why I said before, we're not separate. We cannot see the diaspora separate from St. Kitts and Nevis. They're just an extension of us, whether you're a citizen or just a person living in the diaspora.
Now, how can we facilitate investments of time and knowledge and you know, cultural exchange and so on? And I keep coming back to this because I do recognize that it's happening, and I do recognize that the interest is there. I loved the database idea. There was a time when we had, there used to be, every 2 years, I think, there used to be a conference of sorts.
We still have it.
Is there something that we can do, something specific, and even if it's once a year or once every other year, how do we get those people to come and give lectures or do training, or, you know, with your social work? Should you be up at the college? Should you be, you know, at the homes for the aged working with some of the workers, whatever that, or at the schools?
Well, when I first arrived, I actually done a little time at the children's home, because that was my passion with children, working with children. So I done, and for me, that was myself giving back to St. Kitts and Nevis by doing that. And I enjoyed that time there. But like I said, because, you know, as I said, even though I'm retired, I still want to be doing things. I don't want to be here just to sit and lime on the beach.
Are there barriers to doing that? You tell me, because you have returned and you both have said, you know, you do volunteer work and so on. Be honest.
Do you find barriers?
Were there barriers? When you wanted to volunteer, did you get the who does she think she is thing?
I didn't, but I think
Ms. Williams chuckling.
I'm trying to stay positive. I'm trying to stay positive.
We can, but we also have to be realistic.
Yes,
and how do
we
we
should
break
be
down
realistic.
those barriers?
I've definitely had that from a professional perspective, you know, having conversations, pitching my services, and maybe people thinking, well, why should she be in that position as a newcomer? From a volunteering perspective, I have found, and I always lead with positivity because I'm focusing on the people that want me in the room, not the people that don't want me in the room. And I think that's an important mindset hack, really, because we can get sucked into other people's negativity, and then in the end, you shrink to the sideline and feel like, you know, there's no way for me to contribute. So actually, I think it's about identifying where can I be of service, and I think just building on what you said, Ms. Williams, and I suppose what you had said in asking the question, we need to be clear on what the ask is. When we're reaching out to the diaspora, what do we want them to contribute? Where are the gaps? Because actually, again, when we're thinking about if it's going to be truly a mutual exchange of value, the diaspora come and they get this warm, fuzzy feeling for contributing and giving back, as you say, but we also get what we need in terms of that skill development so that our young people can learn about what's the latest in AI, what's the latest in solar, renewable energy. And if they choose to, go overseas, study, but we encourage them to come back and bring what they've learned back. So it really is important that we're clear on where are the gaps in our skill sets and our knowledge. It can't just be the market becomes flooded with maybe other people like me who come from a finance and investing background. Maybe we say, actually, Dav's enough. We don't need any more in that category. We need people that come from a renewable energy background. There is a brilliant business owner who I think has been doing some work in collaboration with Elevate around solar and renewable engineering. Again, a brilliant contribution to young people that are looking to develop those skills. So if we are clear that our Sustainable Island State Agenda, those 7 pillars, we can identify members of the diaspora that fall into one of those categories and can contribute tangibly there. that's a really great
So
way to
just
start
not
to
sort
make
of
it
a
strategic.
random
We don't
ad
want the
hoc
free-for-all.
anybody come, right,
It doesn't
right.
mean that we want to discourage people from contributing, of course, but equally, I imagine if you were ever in the children's home at Christmas, people, I'm sure they're inundated with barrels
Absolutely.
of things.
Absolutely.
And that's wonderful. The children deserve to be spoiled.
Of course.
But at the same time, if we have 10 dresses, but there are boys that have no clothes, then that doesn't make sense. And I'm using, a very simple example, but the point is we need to be very clear on what we're asking people to contribute, because the diaspora and other citizens, including economic citizens, really are willing to contribute, but they need to be told what that contribution should look like.
Okay, well, you spoke of the Diaspora Conference. Well, we still have it. We have it every 3 years. We held it last year at the St. Kitts Marriott, and it was very, very
attended,
successful. Very. Beverly was there, and Davinia was also there. And coming out of the conference, we were able to liaise with and make connection with a number of persons. Presently in Rideau, we are formulating a few programs that would have manifested from that. Persons who would have presented, because the topics that were discussed were all based on the Sustainable Island State Agenda, the 7 pillars. We based them on them, so we would have fleshed out certain topics that we found that, we could get some assistance from the Diaspora Fund for. And we have about 3 projects in the works right now. They're not finalized, I can't really say. But a project that we are presently working on for next year, though, it's dubbed the St. Kitts and Nevis Heritage Emergence Program, where we're trying to target persons in the diaspora between the ages of 18 and 21. We are involving the associations to nominate persons and some support from them. We are trying to get support from them also. We're looking at 20 young people to come in, and we immerse them in everything Kittitian. Every single thing Kittitian we're trying to do. So we're trying to fill that generational gap there. So it's continual. It's cultural. It's historical. Your heritage. It's just everything St. Kitts. So we're presently working on that. So you'll hear more about it coming on to the end of the year, early next year. And, those are the programs that we hope to partner with the diaspora on going forward, because it's going to be dynamic.
No, I did actually have a question that I intended to ask about the role of the youth in that diaspora, but you guys have all made it clear that is a critical part of it.
Absolutely.
Even in terms of changing or adding Descendants to the name of your association.
Absolutely, that was pivotal.
Up front, that they're the ones who are going to carry this forward.
Absolutely.
Correct, because the aim is to have them come and see, how can I contribute to St. Kitts and Nevis? Having spent a week or 2 here, you now go back to your home, and then your mindset is now St. Kitts and Nevis. You're going to college, you might look at an area that you would have seen in the Sustainable Island State Agenda, who you think St. Kitts and Nevis can benefit from this. So you now have that mindset, I can contribute. So that is what we're trying to do from that age going forward.
And recently, and this was even more in terms of promotional, but recently we had Cole Palmer, who
Yes,
of course,
correct,
is
the footballer.
International star, but a football player who visited St. Kitts and Nevis, and it was like he was our own celebrity. There were people lining up to meet him, but more importantly, he posted about it. He posted about it on his social media pages for all of his hundreds of thousands of fans. So even getting that kind of promotion
correct,
is critical, and we need to look at some of those partnerships. But again, you bring in young people; they're all influencers these days with their social media and so on.
They're all into their IT.
I think the thing for me is about the sustainability piece. So, because that program sounds brilliant, and I remember myself as a teenager coming. We used to come every Christmas or summer holidays, and so I felt very much that this was a place that I loved and I wanted to be. But there's quite a difference between coming on holiday at Christmas and loving the place, and then when you move. And so I think there is something in that cultural immersion about how can we make it real for them so that they understand when they come, it's not necessarily easy, but nothing that's good is going to come easily to you. And then once they leave, again, it comes back to the, how we can harness digital infrastructure to follow them and make sure that they still feel that sense of connection. Because the Diaspora Conference really is outstanding.
Yes.
It was very well attended last year.
Yes.
And so how do you continue that momentum? How do you keep the energy and the vibrations high when people leave and, as you say, return to their home countries?
And we also do that through the Diaspora Digest. We do a publication every quarter that we disseminate throughout the diaspora and to the various ministries that captures work that persons are doing in the diaspora. We highlight someone every quarter. We highlight an association. We let you know what's going on in St. Kitts and Nevis. We let you know what's going on in Birmingham, all over. So we capture that every quarter and we disseminate it throughout the diaspora. So everybody's engaged in what's happening in St. Kitts and Nevis and with its diaspora.
So where I see a bit of a gap is that the residents, nationals who live here and have always lived here, and those in the diaspora, I don't know that we, going to work and coming home, know about all of those exciting things that are happening. And we still have sometimes a little bit of an us and them, even though you're born here, well, you've been away, you have an accent. And I think it's natural. I'm not knocking it in any way. And I've been on both sides. I was the one returning and getting the, well, where are you from? Yeah. And now I'm on this side going, who's this person? So I get it. I do get it. So how do we bridge that? How do we know? So we've talked about their involvement and how they, and we know they're out there and we don't need everyone. We don't want the free for all. But they're there, and the youth are there, and the next generation is there, and we've got the CBI citizens and so on. How do we bring them together? How do we get everyone? And is it even possible? Is it needed? But to have a bit more of a connection between the two, or at the very least, have those of us living here understand what the folks in the diaspora are doing and contributing as well. Because I can't say that we do, I guess other than an occasional little piece on the news or something.
That is a point, Toni, and we're working towards that for the new year. We're hoping to start some radio programs every month. We hope to have some snippets or maybe have big guests on In Focus and speak about some of the things that we have been doing, the contributions the diaspora have been making, things like that. So it is our hope to do that in the coming year.
And when we have the Diaspora Conference, is it open to, are there any activities that bring everyone, that bring people together?
Yes, it's open
Church
registration.
Service, so locals?
It's open registration.
It's open to everybody.
It's open registration. Diaspora persons can register, locals can register.
Do we have a lot of locals registering?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
We actually did have a few locals there.
Okay.
So, and when we do have the conference, it's not just a sit down and talk all day. We have the scenic railway. We go on the nature tours.
Went
things
over
like
to
that.
Nevis.
They go over to
Trip to
Nevis.
Nevis.
Yeah, Beverly would remember.
Yeah.
And so we try to include everyone. We don't limit it to just persons in the diaspora.
It's a nice social event as well.
Correct.
Because one of the things we do from the Returning National and Descendants Association, we have a social event every quarter. So we invite everybody out. We have it on Facebook. We advertise it. In June, we had a trivia quiz down at Meltaway. And in September, the 23rd, we're having an open mic for those who might want to come and sing or do poetry. So we're trying to involve and to try and reach out to as many returning nationals as we can via Facebook, via media, through programs like this. ZIZ has had us on the radio before as well to advertise it. So it's just about reaching out to them, to let them know we are here for them.
Are we doing a good job?
Are we doing a good job?
No, I mean, I just generally.
Oh, yeah.
We're moving in the right direction.
Yes. Oh, definitely. Yes. We're definitely moving in the right direction. Yeah,
well,
definitely.
I can see the difference, by the way, having returned to
Things have moved on. Things have moved on. And as I said, even from our perspective, working closely with Redo as well, which we do, that's helped us to make things more smoothly as well for people coming into to St. Kitts and Nevis. Because we have a lot of connections.
I think just to add to that, because I think economic citizens are almost in a separate category from that because there isn't necessarily as natural a link. It's one that we need to foster.
Correct.
And I think since, the newly created CIU under the leadership of His Excellency Mr. Calvin St. Just, under my team's jurisdiction is really to think about how can we create that connection, not just with economic citizens, but also with the general population of St. Kitts and Nevis. How can they understand better what the activities of the Citizenship by Investment Unit? So there is a whole, if not education, but re-education, and I mean that in as least patronising a way as possible. But ultimately, if you don't have knowledge about something, that it is imperative that whoever presides over that institution shares that knowledge with people who are impacted by it. So that's something that we have prioritised. And there is definitely an opportunity for us to do much more in that area, which we are prioritising. We have the chairman doing radio interviews, which is a new feature for us, so that he can share much more about some of our activities. And also, I think, importantly, help the general public to understand some of the ways in which CBI has contributed in ways that they may not necessarily know, contributed towards social programs, towards infrastructure. And not because we expect the general public to be grateful in any way. Again, it comes as one of the responsibilities of economic citizens. Those investments should contribute to the infrastructure because they are benefiting in a different way. So it's that, the upside for citizens should be that they feel that benefit. But if they are not told that some of the contribution for this program or that program has come from CBI receipts, then they're not going to know. So I think there is a real opportunity there for us to do much more to promote brand SKN to the general public, to the wider economic citizen community, so they can understand, as we said, both the rights and the responsibilities, but also how they can contribute more effectively.
Now, while you wanted to...
Yes, I wanted to add just briefly, there's actually a St. Kitts and Nevis association that comprises of citizens, the Lebanon, St. Kitts and Nevis Lebanon Association, that we have made contact with, and we are in contact with. And when he came for the investment summit...
So are you talking about Kittitians and Nevisians who are of Lebanese descent, or you're talking about...
Economic citizens.
Economic citizens? Really?
Yes.
Do they know that there's a whole community of Kittitians and Nevisians of Lebanese descent?
I'm not certain
have they connected?
I'm not certain.
There's still some families here that have been here for generations now.
I'm not certain if he's aware, but he, in Lebanon, established the Lebanese St. Kitts and Nevis Lebanon Association.
That's brilliant.
And it's all economic citizens that are part of it.
Well, I would like to throw that one out there because the Lebanese, just recently on Facebook, there is a Facebook for Kittitians and Nevisians of Lebanese descent.
Okay.
They have dug up documents that listed, because back in the colonial times in the 19th century, they used to have to list and register the names of the Lebanese immigrants who came. This is in the 1800s, and they had these lists of names, and then people who were the descendants of these people were commenting and so on. So there is a community of sorts within here in St. Kitts and Nevis, and in the diaspora. But so there are businesses that carry Arab surnames that are. In the old days, I think we called them Syrians because at the time they were occupied, and it was Greater Syria, but it is present-day Lebanon. They've always called themselves Lebanese, but that's an interesting. And wonderful that they would do that as well. Now, while I've been trying to steer the conversation away from just the fiscal, you talk about, there was a discussion once about investment, the CBI, not just saying for X dollars you can become a citizen, but actually have programs that citizens by investment can invest directly in to gain their citizenship. So for instance, say we wanted to build a new hospital, they could contribute or decide, I'm going to contribute those funds specifically to this hospital program or this school program or this road resurfacing or the early childhood development. And they have the option to say that's where they want to direct their investment, whether partially or in full. Is that, I know that that's a managerial decision.
It is.
But on just talking to you as a financial expert,
I mean,
can that work?
not only can it work, but it already exists. So we do have a category of investment through CBI that's referred to as public benefit option. And there are 5 different projects that economic citizens, prospective economic citizens, can invest into, one of which is the rehabilitation of Barstia High School. And so exactly to your point, the purpose of that category of investment is that prospective economic citizens can identify a project with which they might identify. So if you're somebody that is thinking about, actually, I would love to contribute towards the next generation of Kittitions and Nevisions that from an education standpoint, then you might select the school project, for example. But there are 4 others that you might also invest into, which mean that you're contributing in a really tangible,
and
demonstrable way, directly
That's fantastic.
to the sustainability of society. One of the other public benefit options is housing. So investing into affordable housing, again, for Kittitions. Currently it's Kittitions, I'm sure it will be Nevisions in time, but for Kittitions. So again, an opportunity for you to see where your contribution has gone. And again, make you feel like I'm not just investing or pouring money into something and I can't see the result, but actually there is a benefit to me and I want there to be a benefit to the nation for whom I'm acquiring the citizenship.
We do need to take a break. Did either of you all want to comment on what she said?
Oh, she's the expert in that area.
Or say what you think about it. I personally
think it's brilliant. I didn't even know, but I think it's a brilliant idea.
And
So I'm glad I've heard that.
There's still, from the public residents' point of view, there's still a little caution about the CBI program. But I think if the public understood that this was an option, I think it would completely changes the perspective. I think that's something.
And that's our responsibility.
To let
yes.
them know. Because I wasn't aware of that.
We are going to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to throw out the question that I know everybody's in the diaspora. Contribution. We're going to talk about how much influence those members of the diaspora, including CBI citizens, should have in how things are run, if you will, in St. Kitts and Nevis. Voting. We'll be back after this.
The St. Kitts and Nevis Independence 42 Committee presents Conversations, Reflections and a Way Forward. This interactive discussion series provides an in-depth view of the trials and achievements of the past, as well as the accomplishments, threats, and tremendous opportunities of today and in the coming years that will transform the Twin Island Federation into a model sustainable island state, serving as a beacon for all. On this edition, we discuss what role should our global family play in building St. Kitts and Nevis.
Would you see your children's future dwindling?
And we're back. This is an episode of Conversations, Reflections on the Way Forward. And today we are talking about what the role of our global community should be in nation building. And I'm joined today by some experts, if you will, in the area of diaspora and CBI connection. We have Davinia Tomlinson, who is the Chief Marketing Officer with our Citizenship by Investment Unit, And I actually like today that we've been including CBI citizens in the conversation, because often when you hear diaspora, we just assume that we mean people who were born here or descendants of those who were. We have Ms. Beverly Williams, who is the president of the Returning Nationals and Descendants Association, and Ms. Desiree Huggins, who is celebrating her birthday today, who is the Assistant Secretary and Regional Integration at the Regional Integration and Diaspora Unit within the Office of the Prime Minister. So, my question, and I'm going to word it this way, but what is the appropriate level of influence, if you will, that the diaspora should have on policy, local, domestic policy, decision making, and so on? No, I'm really alluding to their ability to vote. I don't know if there's a way, I don't know, if you see a way for them to have that influence outside of voting, maybe you can speak to that. I suppose some could say, well, you know, people contribute money to political parties, so there's an influence in that regard. So we can include that as well. But let's start with, should they be able to? Should nationals, born and raised here but moved abroad at some point, and I'm not, just for the purpose of this conversation, I'm not talking about nationals and residents who are studying abroad. No. Or who are working abroad on a contract. So in other words, they live here, but they've taken a 2-year contract in Spain or something. Let's not include those in the conversation. I'm talking about nationals who have moved abroad, have lived abroad for a period of time, they work there, they pay their taxes there, they have a home there, their children are born there, and so on. And home is where you come for a little holiday. Okay, so let's make that clear. That's who we're talking about. And CBI members who are who meet the requirements to vote, and some would if you reside here and those sorts of things. So, should they have a say?
I think, this is just my opinion, I think it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. I'm going to put it out that way. I think they've got a right to vote because they are nationals. Who, as
so we're talking not residents.
Yeah, not really. And they're nationals because they were born here but gone to live wherever they've gone to live. And I think they've still got an investment in the country because they may want to, eventually they may want to come back, or their children may want to come back and live. So I think they've got some kind of input in what goes on in the country. So that's said it. And then on the other coin, the other half of it is they don't live here. So whoever party they've voted for, the people who live here has to then deal with whatever's going on for the next 5 years. And those people who's voted and don't live here has nothing to do with that. But yes,
so I think you're conflicted.
It is a confliction. It is a confliction. But I think it's 6 of one, half dozen the other. I think they have a right to vote.
Okay.
That question goes back to my opening statement. The diaspora is an extension of the nation.
Yes.
So you cannot want the diaspora to contribute to nation building and at the same time do not give them that right that is theirs. So, as Beverly said, it's kind of twofold also, because persons living in St. Kitts and Nevis who live here might say, you know, I'm here, I have to deal with all of what's happening. You come in for a day or two, you vote, and you leave. You don't have to deal with the policies that are put in place because of who you voted for and which government is put in place. But at the same time, there are persons living in the diaspora that are contributed significantly to nation building, not because they don't live here. So should they be robbed of that fact because they don't live here? They are contributing. They just don't live here. They keep in touch with what is going on. They make the investments. They make the connections where we need them to make the connections. So why should they be robbed of that ability to vote? So it can be looked at from 2 different aspects.
Yeah.
So you're conflicted as well?
It's conflicting.
That's why I said 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot, and she's speaking as a private citizen, not as someone who works for the Prime Minister's office. So whatever she says is her personal opinion. As a national living here, be honest, are you comfortable about the fact that you could potentially, not always, but you could potentially have people enough people coming in here to sway the vote other than how the majority of the people who live here would vote. Given that we have constituencies and we have people who have won and lost constituencies by less than a dozen votes. So it takes one plane load and a constituency goes and somebody has the majority who may not have been the choice of the residents, including you.
Well,
So, personal.
No pressure.
but personally, my personal and my professional aligns.
Okay, so you do think.
Yes, they contribute.
And so that's it.
Yeah, they align.
Okay.
I'm less conflicted,
Okay.
I would say.
They align.
And I don't think it's, unlike Ms. Williams, I respect what you said.
I hear what you know.
I respect what Ms. Huggins said. And I suppose from my standpoint, people listening, particularly hearing my accent, I'll be like, it's like a turkey voting for Thanksgiving or a turkey voting for Christmas, because actually, I don't think we should have the right to vote unless we've got skin in the game. And by skin in the game, and I think it kind of touches on something that you alluded to, which is you have to have some kind of tangible investment. It could be that your children live there and therefore you are voting for policies that will benefit them from an education perspective, retirement benefit perspective, social security perspective, what have you. It could be that you have a home, and of course any decision that's taken on fiscal policy, monetary policy will impact interest rates, it will impact cost of living, it will impact the tax regime, and on that basis you've got skin in the game and therefore you might be afforded a vote. But unfortunately, you being a bystander in New York or Toronto, and you come here for holiday, and you feel like you know what's going on because you're on Facebook and you watch the popular pundits and you read the gossip blogs, or you get accurate information from people. You know, I don't want to diminish the quality of the information that people receive. It's still not the same as having to live with the consequences of a decision that you can take and then walk away from. So you can drop a bomb. It's like in a movie, watching the bomb explode, and then the action hero's walking away, but everyone else has gone up in flames, but the action hero's walking away. That's really not what we should be encouraging. It should be that, yes, we want you to come and vote, but in exchange for you voting, you've got to be doing something that means you are putting your feet on the ground in a more regular way and a more frequent way than just coming every 5 years to vote or coming once a year for Christmas.
No, let me play devil's advocate here, and I'm going to, and I can tell you're dying to say something as well. How do we want to take that step backwards to a time where to qualify to vote, you had to be a landowner, or you had to have a certain amount of money, which automatically ruled out most people of African descent, all of the working classes, because we did not qualify to vote. We didn't get universal adult suffrage here in St. Kitts and Nevis until 1956, which allowed anybody who was an adult to vote regardless of whether or not you owned anything. So there is that historical context that makes, well, I own a home there, I should be able to vote. So the property owner can vote. When my mom and I lived in Canada, we lived hand to mouth. You know, she had a little job and I went to school. We never were in a position to own property here. Does that mean she ought not to have been able to vote?
If your mother lived in Canada and you lived here, perhaps, irrespective of your mother's asset level, I think she has an entitlement to vote because you live there.
But is it not complicated then? Like, you know, so you have to register to vote, and we have a voters list that just lives for eternity. You know, it's never been scrapped and redone. It's been tweaked. So again, what happens there? What if I own a house there now and I'm on the list, and then down the road I sell the house and I don't own a house, but I'm on the list? I'm just saying that there are.
It's not straightforward.
It isn't.
No. It's not straightforward.
So either they do or they don't.
Yes.
But while I understand that you're saying there should be certain qualifications or criteria, that means, and you know, in the old days they used to draw up the voters list every election. Well, I think our population is too large for that now. Even though, you know, Jamaica redid its voters list in about 6 months, they were able to re-register everyone. So, you know, in St. Kitts and Nevis, but then again, you have the people in the diaspora and so on. But so for you, it's like, yes, you're a citizen, you're registered, you vote. Okay. Yeah. Ms. Williams?
All I was going to add on to say from what you were saying is I still think I'm in favor of people being allowed to come and vote. Only reason being, First of all, I don't know many people who come for once every 5 years to vote. I don't know of people who do that. I'm sure it does, but I don't know anybody personally.
110% by the plane loads.
I totally agree with that, but I know for myself and many others, I mean, personally speaking, I speak for myself, I used to come here 3 times a year, every year, without fail, until I permanently settled here. So yes, I came to vote, and I felt it was my right to come and vote because I know this is my home. It's always been in my heart. St. Kitts and Nevis is always my home. There's no ifs or I get very emotional about talking about St. Kitts and Nevis, but there's no ifs and buts about it. So I felt it was my right to. And I think people who do come and visit, and not the ones, I can't speak for the ones who come once every 5 years. I don't know of any. But those who have been coming and are contributing to the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis should have that right to vote.
We cannot pick and choose when we want to make the diaspora count. As I said, they're an extension of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Absolutely.
So we cannot pick to say, well,
But
okay,
if a policy is against you, I think, but you've already answered this, but if the policy is actually detrimental to you, the members of the diaspora that it would also be detrimental to, they live overseas now.
They have family here. They might have interests here.
I think a lot.
Some may not. And if they don't, but you have to live with it.
The thing is, having a residency requirement to vote in a specific election isn't that hard to do. In Jamaica, I think it has to be a year. I think Antigua is 3 months. So that's a possibility. So that you are a citizen, nobody's taking away your citizenship, and just because you may not be on this year's, be eligible to vote in this election, doesn't mean that you're not going to send your mother a barrel, or you're not going to help because you can. But would that be an option, that there is some sort of residency requirement? Or again, it complicates the issue for you because you may have people who are not in a position to travel, but they're contributing regularly. I'm not fighting you though. And
I'm in favour of qualifying criteria.
Some sort of qualifying criteria.
I don't know what it looks like.
but okay. And Ms. Williams?
And I'll go with that. I'm okay with that.
All right. Okay. But Ms. Huggins is like, hey, you are a citizen. Now, bearing in mind that this includes the citizens by descent, because citizen is citizen.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So even if you've never lived here, but your mother was born here.
You have interest.
Yes. Okay, you have
interest.
Okay. All right. And you know what? And a lot of people feel that way. And the truth is, I don't think there's a political will to change it. It's never been something that I think any of the political parties are willing to tackle anyway, because it could be an advantage. Yeah. So even as we speak of it, I don't see it the system changing at this time anyway.
Can I just add, let me just amend when I said I'm in,
yeah,
I just wanted to say when I said I'm in favour of the criteria, I'm still on this side of the fence.
Wow.
I still think people should still be, I'm sitting on this side. Yeah, okay, I'm back with you.
Should have to.
Yeah. We should be allowed, people should be allowed from the diaspora to come and vote. Yes. I'm sitting on the fence.
We are
this
an extension of St. Kitts and Nevis.
100%. Just wanted to clear that up, people out there. I'm all for you coming to vote.
Okay, all right. And as I said, this has been the way it's been for a long time.
Absolutely.
And I don't envision it changing.
If it's not broken, don't try and fix it.
Well, and that's all I have to say to that.
We're still friends.
So I think we have today seen that absolutely there's a role for nation building, and that perhaps what is really needed is just making it a bit more targeted. Identifying. I really like some of the things you said about that, like identifying specific areas where we can use specific skills and assistance, and then look for those using the database, but look for those and reaching out, making those connections. I do think we have to work a little bit more on perhaps tapping into the CBI, understanding that it really is it's a different group really, and it mayn't be there for everybody, but making sure that they know that if they're interested. So I thought we would wrap up today because we still have a few minutes left. I'm going to throw out a question to each of you. I'm going to throw out a question for each of you to tackle. But what does a truly sustainable, mutually beneficial, and progressive partnership between St. Kitts and Nevis and its global family. What does it look like for the next generation? We've talked a lot about the youth and how we can keep them involved, how we can keep that momentum going, because at some point, all of the ones who are born, but we're always going to have people migrating. So I don't think we're going to lose the first generation folks from the diaspora. But it's even our young people who live here today are less, they're more global citizens than Kittitian and Nevisian. Everybody is watching basketball now instead of playing cricket. So we are there's a risk of even youth living here being less Kittitian and Nevisian than they could be. But let's talk about future. What does it look like? How do we get there? Let's start at this side and come down, Ms. Huggins.
Well, as I said before, we have to move past the transactional commitments and move into a more transformative partnership. We have to look at our diaspora, see where our talents are, where we can tap in, where we can form relationships. And as you said, not just financially, education, culture, promoting our heritage, because the diaspora is not just the diaspora. There are ambassadors, the extension of St. Kitts and Nevis. And we just need to make sure we have targeted areas that we look into, because we have the 7 pillars of the CISA. And
Did you want to just let the listeners and the viewers know what those are? Because we keep referring to them.
Yeah, I don't know.
I can't recite all 7 of them right now.
The key ones, a couple of key.
I think it's energy, recycling in some instance, circular economy, the orange economy, the creatives. I can't list all 7 of them off the top of my head.
So developmental.
Right. So if we are able to focus on those areas, I think we would move in the right direction that we are trying to move. Because you can't just say, you want to go here, you want to go there. It has to be targeted. So once we can provide the policies and tap into the right persons, move into the right direction, I think we will accomplish what it is we're setting out for.
And Ms. Williams?
I think from the point of view where returning nationals have, we've got over, I think, that 43 members on our association at this moment of time. And a lot of them, obviously, they'll speak to me. And one of the issues they're finding, and I don't know if anybody else has experienced it, that you may have heard of, is obviously our accent is an issue. It's not an issue, but our accent clearly says you're from England. And I think they feel some of them feel quite discriminated against because of their accent. And so therefore, there's 2 of them I can call out, which I won't call names, who's got so much skills and knowledge in various areas that they can bring into the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. But again, they're not being used, they're not being utilised because they're coming from England. And I think a lot of Kittitians and Nevisians feel, oh, you've come from England and you're trying to come and take our jobs or try and tell us what to do. And that, to me, if their mentality of how they think towards people coming in can change, we can also bring our wealth of knowledge and skills to the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis and help it to build for the future.
But, and we're going to come to Ms. Tomlinson in a moment, because I'm sure she has a similar experience. And it's not specifically a British accent as a non-national accent.
Yeah, that's the one. Sorry, yeah.
What can we do about that us and them thing? Is there a thing? Is there anything we can do? Is it just human nature? Do you have to prove yourself?
I think it's more human nature than, there is a lot of us and them, and I get it all the time. I'm forever having to say, my parents are from St. Kitts. Both my parents are from St. Kitts. I see myself as a Kittitian. I live here, but I'm always having to justify my existence here. And it gets quite boring after a while. But I keep on doing it because I want people to know this is who I am and I'm here to stay. And I think that's the issue that a lot of our people are having when they're returning back to St. Kitts. So a lot of them will come and just sit down and we'll just the liming on the beach. They're not going to want to integrate and do other things because they feel they're going to get that pushback as well.
And if you can also address that in addressing the question, the bigger picture question of where you see,
I think
a future.
Yeah, I mean, my response is perhaps my least polarizing response of any of my responses so far. But I think there is something about meeting people where they are. So I think there is a real role, and Ms. Huggins, you touched on the different associations, particularly in the UK. I can't speak to what happens in the US, but I certainly see very active associations in the US, in Canada. And I think there is a real role to be played by those associations in bringing together people to understand about issues. Often there are visiting diplomats from here or politicians who will go and talk to Citizenship and divisions from the diaspora in these different cities across the country, across the world, actually. And make a really important, there's that collaboration and that mutual exchange of information, knowledge. The cultural exchange, I think, is really important, as is the cultural enrichment program you talked about for younger people. But when I say we need to meet people where they are, that's one category. And speaking from a marketing perspective, when we're thinking about it from a segmentation standpoint, you've got one category, which tends to be the older generation. Those people that are attending meetings and associations will skew older. How do you reach people that are in the 18 to 21 category? So your cultural enrichment program is a brilliant way to achieve that. How do you reach people that are in the midst of their careers, they're professionals, and they're, making huge contributions to where they currently live, and how do we unlock them and harness them? So I think there is something about finding those individuals, as I said at the start, and refining our message, refining our proposition to meet them, to make it interesting. How can we make it compelling for them? And then I think there is something about, there is a responsibility on both sides. There is a responsibility that should be borne by both sides. So for those of us that are in the diaspora, coming back with humility. It doesn't mean that you have to shrink yourself or shrink your light or diminish yourself in any way. But I do think that we shouldn't come back full of ego and bravado that we are in some way superior to Citizenship and divisions that live here. Instead, what I think we should be doing is being open to learning. We must never not be teachable, and just recognize that Citizenship and divisions can tell us something about what it's actually like to live and work here.
Absolutely.
So we can learn from them. So I think, even in the context of the Returning Nationals and Descendants Association, having people from the nationals come to some of those events, as you said, they're open to all, but making people feel like they're included. And I think that inclusivity is important. We would have a similar situation in the UK. If you're from a big city, if you move from London or Birmingham to Cornwall or Devon on the coast, and they're used to it being the same population of people they've grown up with, they have functions in the town hall, and then suddenly someone comes from the big city. They are also outsiders. So it's not unique to St. Kitts and Nevis, but it's something that we should acknowledge and just find ways to build that bridge that we can all cross between us.
Now, did either of you want to weigh in on what any of the others have said?
No, I'm okay.
Yeah. Ms. Huggins?
No.
Okay.
The only thing I would add, I think, to what Ms. Williams shared is that, because I do recognise your point about the accent. And one of the things for me, I always, and I think this comes from working in an industry in which I was always othered. Anyway, if you come from an industry and you've been socialised professionally to be othered, finance is very male-dominated. It is very singular in ethnicity. So if you're a young black woman starting your career, you enter into rooms in which you are the only person. What that means is you start to flip it on its head and treat yourself as being a unicorn in some ways. And so I think I would, if I had any advice for anyone returning from the diaspora and feeling othered in any way, there is an opportunity for them to think about, what can I do to bedazzle? What can I do to, make a real impact when I enter? I don't want to be a drain on the energy when I enter into a room. I want to radiate and lift up the energy in the room. And even, as I said previously, if you feel that you are not welcome in one room, vacate it and go into another room, because you will be welcome somewhere else.
Absolutely, 100%.
No, Ms. Huggins, you wanted to speak a bit more to the seven.
Yes. I wanted to give a breakdown of the Sustainable Development Agenda, the 7 pillars. We have green energy transition, moving towards sustainable energy sources to power the nation. We have water security, which is ensuring sustainable and reliable supply of water. There's food security, developing sustainable methods of food production to ensure food availability for all citizens. We have sustainable industries, fostering economic activities that are environmentally responsible. sustainable settlements, creating and managing human settlements in a way that minimizes environmental impact, the circular economy, promoting a system where resources are reused and recycled to reduce waste, and health and social protection, which is ensuring the well-being of the population through robust health and social support system. That's just a breakdown of the 7 pillars of the Sustainable Island State Agenda.
Okay. And again, there's so much expertise
Correct.
in the diaspora and including the CBI as well, that hopefully we can tap into.
All right.
Let's talk about a little bit more about the younger generation. Now, you spoke about the program with the youth. Do you have a lot of younger nationals who are younger descendants? Do you have descendants who are a part of the organization?
Definitely, yes. We have a lot more younger ones coming in, and we've got a lot more younger ones very interested in coming in at this moment. At this week alone, I've spoken to, I think, about 6 people from Birmingham in England.
Really?
Who's looking to come back, who's looking to come home to St. Kitts, to make St. Kitts their home. And that's just, and we're only on Thursday, and that's this week alone. And I'm helping some of them with their application form for their citizenships and their descendants from either their grandparent or their parents.
I'm intrigued by that, by the way. What's going on out there? Why
I think
we're
a lot
looking so good to them?
Well, as I said, I'm an ambassador for St. Kitts, so I tell them they've got to come, they've got to come home. But I think a lot of it as well is, it's a stress-free, I find it a stress-free island. There's a lot of opportunities for younger people, for the young ones here as well. And it's just the environment, and the people of St. Kitts and Nevis are so welcoming and warm. And I hear that all the time from different nationalities. When, you know, down at the beach or wherever I am, I hear that all the time about the people. Because islands are islands all over. But I think the people of St. Kitts and Nevis stand out. And that's the attraction for people to come here. So yes, we are having a lot more people, a lot more younger ones being drawn here.
Now, with that said, what are the barriers for that group of people? So young adults and older adults, but not retirement age. It's much easier for a retiree, I think, to make that decision.
Yes.
So what are some of the barriers? I mean, working remotely, perhaps, or you know, even lack of work that would harness their skills in St. Kitts and Nevis. You know, I know people who've studied geology, but you know,
finding jobs,
right.
I think one of the barriers is going to be finding the work that they want to be doing, or setting up a business that they want to set up. And I think also one of the issues they have is also the application process, because they've got to get their citizenship before they can get their passport. So, and I think that is a barrier for people as well. And that's where we come into play, is to try and help them get over that. And as I said, I think it's just mainly about finding work. And, you know, because they're used to a sum of money in England or wherever they're coming from. They may not get that same equivalent here. But it's finding work and obviously finding home to settle in.
Would you recommend then that they come home and visit then? And see if they, as you mentioned, I think it was you who mentioned that it's one thing to come on vacation,
absolutely,
another thing to live here.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, because like I said, I didn't just get up and come on a whim. I've been coming to St. Kitts as an adult from 2006, and I only just recently settled in the last 5 years. So it's something but it was a working process, it was a plan, it was a focus I had to do. So I worked towards that, and I do encourage ones from 30 onwards. You know, have a plan, have an objective, and know where you're going. You can't just get up and come and sit down and think this is it. They've got to have some kind of, you know, objective of what they're going to go into.
No, I did want to throw out a couple more things, but I've just realized that we got so caught up in everything that we are out of time. But I wondered if you had sort of any last thoughts that you would want to, just a quick word you'd want to say, or a message you might have. There will be people in the diaspora listening. Maybe your message is for nationals living at home, but just a minute each. Did Ms. Huggins, did you want to start? Oh, I think.
Okay, I just wanted to say, as part of an extension of St. Kitts and Nevis, we encourage persons to form relationships with the REDO. We do, in the person of Ambassador Christine Walwyn, do make calls on the various associations in the different countries, and we normally announce when we are going to be in those countries. So I encourage all of you to come out and try to build on that relationship so we can work together, hand in hand, going forward. It's not the diaspora and it's not St. Kitts and Nevis, it's us. That's all I have.
I just want to add on to that, as I said, Returning Nationals and Descendants Association, we are here to help anybody who's interested in coming back or returning home to St. Kitts and Nevis. If I'm allowed to give out my contact number, I'm happy to give out our contact number, which is 661-9696. That's 661-9696. Please feel free, if you know anybody who's interested or who's having problems or difficulties in any part of coming back or who's already here, please feel free to call.
And I think for me, I would say, you know, citizenship, whether you're an economic citizen or a citizen by descent, it confers both rights and responsibilities. So, you know, we're incredibly privileged to be part of this beautiful federation, and we must never take it for granted. I think it's easy, particularly when things get tricky, to, you know, not look up and notice, you know, the beauty that surrounds us. And one of the things for me, if I'm ever in a bad mood, I only have to get in my car and drive down the road and just look up and see the beautiful mountain range or see the sea, and instantly that bad mood dissipates. So I think we must recognize what a privilege it is to be a citizen of this federation. As I say, that also applies to economic citizens. And, you know, from a citizenship by investment perspective, we are very much investing in working with the general public in St. Kitts and Nevis so that they can also understand how it's a benefit to them and quite how much the economic citizens that we've had the privilege of working with feel proud to be part of this federation as well, which I think is something that can easily be missed in all of the dialogue that swirls around CBI.
Ladies, it's been an absolute pleasure to spend time with you, and I hope that our conversations can continue beyond just this short time that we've had together here on conversations, reflections, and a way forward. This is brought to you by the Independence 42 Committee, and it's part of they're all focused, if you will, on our theme. And our theme, of course, this year is Perpetual Progress and Sustainable Future in View. Next week, we're going to be talking about Beyond the Beach Towel, redefining luxury tourism in St. Kitts and Nevis. And I think that too would pull a lot of interest. So we certainly want to thank our guests for joining us today. They're interesting and engaging and important contributions, and hope that they will trigger conversations amongst you and other nationals of St. Kitts and Nevis, both in the diaspora and at home. And I do again thank you. We look forward to you joining us again next week. My name is Toni Frederick-Armstrong. Have a great what's left of your day.
The St. Kitts and Nevis Independence 42 Committee presents Conversations, Reflections, and a Way Forward. This interactive discussion series provides an in-depth view of the trials and achievements of the past, as well as the accomplishments, threats, and tremendous opportunities of today and in the coming years that will transform the Twin Island Federation into a model sustainable island state, serving as a beacon for all. On this edition, we discuss what role should our global family play in building St. Kitts and Nevis.
Would you see your children